Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove, dedicated to all of you amazing people who tuning in every single week, the creative visionaries, the entrepreneurs, artists, makers, disruptors. You guys are the creatives leading the world in a new paradigm and in an amazing shift that's happening. And we love connecting with other amazing people worldwide to feature these inspirational stories of people contributing to the culture of music. You know, we're diving into how they do it and creatively, artistically, personally, and professionally, right? Because there's just so many new paradigms now. I'm Matt Gottesman. I am the host and director of the Orlove brands. And you can also connect with me at Matt Gottesman on Instagram. I connect with everybody on there and I answer each and every reply. Would love to connect with all of you guys. And, the main initiative here was that music, as we looked at it, is one of the biggest connectors in the world, right? I mean, we all are connected in one facet or another by music. And it's a very, very common bond. So we're opening up conversations about the art, the contributors, and their missions. And the idea is that there's really no, conventional way of doing things anymore, right? So we like showing unconventional ways and different paths to success. And we're going to dive right in with another incredible guest on today, Lindi Delight. And she's the founder of Delight Management. And we're going to be talking about creating your own opportunities, which many of you have, as you know me, is a very, very big deal to me because I've always been of the mindset that if a door closes, make an opportunity, make a window. If people don't let you in, find a different direction. And a lot of times too, and maybe it's a spiritual side of me, I always basically say that we can't force things that aren't meant for us and we can't run from the things that are. So it's always a beautiful place, in my opinion, if things aren't working out and there's some sort of a resistance, we can find other ways to create the kind of opportunity, the movement or something that we're trying to do that is just true to our soul, true to our path. And so it's a very big conversation and topic. And I'm so grateful to be talking to Lindi about this. And I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background on her. She's been involved in electronic dance music for over 15 years, and she started her professional promotional and event production career in Toronto by establishing a deep house event brand in warehouses and off locations, booking the leading artists in the genre. And then during a 3-year stay in Dubai, she developed her knowledge of brand management PR while working at a cutting-edge creative music agency. And in addition to coordinating and managing all press for the company's weekly electronic music events, she developed event concepts and strategies for leading brands such as Nokia, National Geographic, Puma, and Carolina Herrera. Just a few small brands, out there. And then in 2011, she relocated to Berlin to work for techno heavyweight Chris Liebing to develop his CLR label nights globally. And then always looking for new challenges, what creative entrepreneur isn't, and constantly studying later developments in communication, marketing, and event production. She took on the brand manager and event director position at Lee Burridge's All Day I Dream venture in 2015. And within that year, she expanded the USA-based brand to debut in London, Paris, Berlin, and Beirut, and nearly tripling the number of event productions than previous years. Guys, this is not an easy feat, so we have to give her a lot of credit for that. I can only imagine the story she has. And then at the end of 2016, she launched her management agency, Delight Management, to focus on brand and showcase management. The agency represents top brands, Life and Death, Rekids, Grounded Festival, and regularly working with various corporate and private clients, offering a 360 service encompassing strategy and activation across a broad range of media. The agency launched an artist management division in mid-2019 and now represents artists such as Una Doll, Hy Brazil, and Raven. Lindi and her team understand all aspects of the music industry, and their passion, absolutely, for music translates into complex and authentic activations on behalf of their clients. That's an amazing, impressive background, Lindi. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, before we start the show, I mentioned that obviously, like you, we do nothing conventional ever. And, Matt Orlove and I, we were talking about what's a really cool way to understand the musical background of the creators that come on the show, than rapid fire questions at the beginning of the show. And so we'll start there. And then I would definitely want to go through your background before we talk about creating opportunities, because I feel like a lot of your background was creating opportunities, All
right, I'm ready.
Perfect. All right. So question one, rapid fire question one. If all music is wiped away from the face of the planet completely, it's all gone, and you can only save 3 albums and listen to those 3 for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Okay, so I have to say the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill,
Mm.
D'Angelo's Brown Sugar, and Mary J. Blige, What's the 411? And if
Oh.
I could just accidentally or somehow get a fourth in there, I would say Enter the Wu-Tang, the 36 Chambers album. So those would be the ones.
Oh man, you've got at least actually, you might have actually 4 in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. That's the second time on the show that's a second or third time that's come up. What a classic album. And Mary J is Mary J. I have every single one of her albums. And it's always interesting. I love always hearing everybody's choices because a lot of times I keep them on my phone and continue to go back to this beautiful age of the golden era of R&B and hip hop in the 90s. And D'Angelo's D'Angelo. So
yeah, that's what I grew up on, and even though I've been working in electronic music for such a long time, like my heart, my soul, all my memories of being a teenager were all listening to, 90s hip hop R&B.
I know. God, yeah, I know. Amazing. All right. Well, so second question, and sometimes I have found that people have combined one and two. Name an influential person, living or non-living, that if you could interact for one night, who would it be?
I would have to say it would be Nelson Mandela,
Oof.
and yeah, because he is someone who is a prime example of keeping your headspace, keeping your mind strong during, times that you can never really imagine being in, so he was in jail for 27 years. He did not let the system break him. When he got out, he led his mother country to freedom. And for me, this is someone that's a warrior, not just a warrior in life, but also a warrior of the mind. So it's incredible what this man has accomplished. So that would be who I would love to spend time with.
That'd be an incredible conversation. And you're spot on about the mindset in not kind of rising above a very, very rough situation and not letting it harden him, but actually create him. And how that then translates to how leadership to everybody else from that point versus kind of being the victim from that. I mean, what an incredible, human being he was. So
he led with love,
Yes.
love for his country, love for his people.
Yeah.
And that's your main motivation. That's what can be possible.
Always. It's always done from the heart. And, usually it takes something to get to that place. And when it does, I mean, the effects are phenomenal. So amazing. A good choice. Okay. Rapid question number 3. In your opinion, what's the best music-focused film of all time for you? Just for you. Now, it can be anything. It could be fictitious. It could be a documentary or a rockumentary or, a historical piece. It could be anything.
All right. I'm kind of torn because I have to say Beat Street, the hip-hop breakdance and culture movie from 1984. And I also, on the other side, have to say The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston because Whitney is amazing and can do no wrong in my eyes.
Both really, really good choices.
Thanks.
Incredible. I haven't watched The Bodyguard. Actually, I revisited. I think it was about 5 years ago. I think it popped up on Netflix at one point. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to revisit this." Incredible. Okay, and then the final question: what's an important book, podcast, or Audible? And now I'm including platform that has helped you navigate your creativity and passion, where you've really learned to harness, any aspect of what you've been doing with your work or with the music or your, mindfulness, anything.
I would have to say it's a book. It's Principles by Ray Dalio. This one, I think, you're going to show it to me? Yes.
Boom.
Great. Yeah. And this book I found just extremely fascinating. It really helped me create more processes in my business, how to systematize things better, learning more about people, how to be a better leader. So this is definitely one of my, one of my go-to books.
So true. And besides leadership mentality, and just his background, isn't it really incredible in how he kind of calls himself out a little bit with here's, what I was right, but my ego still got in the way. And then here's how I correct that from a leadership standpoint. And then just kind of how everybody around has to win and move collectively. But then, the processes and the systems is everything. It totally changed my mind as well, too. I'm like, wow, if we don't change our approaches, especially as we get older, we're going to kind of be rowing in circles. So incredible book. So, okay.
Any more rapid fire questions?
No, that's it. You crushed them. You actually crushed it. No, unless I can come with some up on the fly, which I'm pretty good at every now and then. I want to dive back into your background a little bit because, first of all, years of experience and moving culturally to different parts of the world, being multifaceted in different genres of music, immersing yourself in electronic music. And there's so much experience and probably wisdom gained along the way as well too. Then, I totally get about brand management, especially if you're dealing in places like Dubai. I dealt with luxury brand management with Louis Vuitton, myself in New York and Paris. And so like, I get we learn so much from some of these environments that provide such great wisdom as well too, and experience. So I'd love for you can go as far back as you'd like, but how did we get to today and with Delight Management? And that also gives some more context before we start kind of rapping a little bit about, creating your own opportunities and things like that. Cause I feel like you probably created a lot of them along the way too.
Sorry, how far back do you want me to go? How do you want me to?
Some people go as far back as the Big Bang Theory or like birth. You can go as far back as you want. Like, I think probably when you first really started to say, you know what, music is for me, this is the direction I'm going in, and here's where I'm going to enter from and moving forward.
All right. So my days in high school were a bit different than others. I was a massive techie as well myself. I was really into electronics. So from grades 10 to 12, I was in a career preparation program at school. So I would take 2 blocks of electronics and also support courses like drafting, auto body, woodwork, etc. So I graduated with 100 hours of program-related work experience. And simultaneously in high school, I found the raves. So I was definitely a raver. I was going almost every weekend. and this is where I fell in love with electronic music. And at first it was, the progressive house that I was into. But then I realized, going to more festivals where you'd find stages with different subgenres of the music, I started to discover more like the deep, sexy, soulful house music. And this is what I fell in love with. So this was in Vancouver. And then when I moved to Toronto, I was still in the rave scene, still in the party scene. And it was just one day I decided that I wanted to start throwing parties. So it wasn't something that I had always dreamt about, but it was one day I had an epiphany that I was like, you know what? I love music. I really think that I would have a great approach to the music that I would showcase at my parties. So I think I'm just going to start throwing parties. And it seems like as soon as I made that decision, like the universe just opened up to me. So when I got back to Toronto, I went to a nightclub, and I'd never promoted before, but I spoke to the manager or the owner, sorry, and he gave me a tester night, and I ended up rocking that tester night. And simultaneously, I created my business name, I designed my logo, I got business cards made. So this is how I started to build up my database for my parties. So 3 months after I promoted my first party at this nightclub, I threw my first event production in a loft space in Toronto. And everything just kind of went from there. And this was really the days before social media. So you had to be a lot more creative with the way that you were promoting. So I had a special way to promote where I would go out, I would watch people, I would see how they would dance, I would see how they interact with people. And then I'd walk up to them and I would give them an invite for my party. And my invite always had my email address on it. So they had to email me to get on the list. And yeah, that's how I started to build up my database, started throwing more parties, and really started to teach myself every single thing as I went. And, of course I made mistakes along the way, but thankfully I'm a quick learner and I didn't really make the same mistake twice, but it was really through trial and error. And I just kept going and going. And I really felt that this was exactly where I needed to be. So moving forward, going over to Dubai and working for this creative music agency, this is another way for me to just test out what my capabilities were, test out my knowledge and my skills, was just to go for it and jump in head first. A lot of these things I'd never done before. I'd never even made a presentation or a pitch deck for a brand. But when I was said, okay, this is something for me to do, I just learned how to do it and started to teach myself how to design, teach myself how to make promo videos. And I just did it, and this is how things just progressed throughout my career. And then so I was working in Dubai for 3 years and then moving over to Berlin to work for Chris Liebing. Chris Liebing is one of the biggest German techno DJs in the world. And being able to have the opportunity to work with him was really something special. I was working with him for about 4 years. We started expanding the CLR label nights around the world. And this is where I really started to learn about techno. And this is like real German techno. And I was going from city to city in Germany. I've been to Stuttgart, Wuppertal, Düsseldorf, Mannheim, all over, and really being completely surrounded by German techno people and German techno culture. So I was completely immersed, and I fell in love. I fell in love. So after working working with him for about 4 years, simultaneously there was a big merger with the agency that we're with, and it became like a big agency. And in this time, I started to lose the reason why I was doing what I was doing. So I had to make a decision. And if I stay within the company just doing something else, or if I start my own thing, or if I just try something new. And simultaneously, Matthew DK, who was a partner of Lee Burridge at the time, he knew that I was leaving the agency and said, all right, Lindi, now that you're leaving, I really think that this is where you should be. And I was a little bit apprehensive because, going from techno music to All Day Dream, which is a little more like Burning Man centered. So a lot more costumes, and the parties were in the daytime, and, it's a little more airy, and I wasn't so sure, but I just decided to take a chance. And after the first party that we did together in New York, it was really clear that, again, I was exactly where I needed to be. And this time I was able to take all of the experience that I acquired, and especially working at the agency prior in terms of like marketing communications. And I was able to dump all of my efforts into this brand and help make it a global sensation. So once I was working with All Day Dream, I was with them for about 2 years, and I definitely achieved the goals that I'd set out for myself and for the brand. And that was to take it from being a 6-event brand in North America to really hitting almost every continent, nearly every continent. And that was really a lot of fun for me. And it was great to see how every part of the world received the music and received the brand. And also the fact that we were Sundays in the daytime, and it all stuck, So after that, I decided to start my own agency, because this way I can start, building my team of people and doing things on a bigger scale, but doing things also on my own terms, deciding more my clients in another way. And also, if I wasn't happy with something, that I wouldn't necessarily sacrifice my integrity in any way. So I started working with different electronic music brands. And because building electronic music showcases was my specialty, that's where I really excelled. So I ended up getting DJ Tennis's Life and Death events. And DJ Tennis had waited a little while before like relaunching the brand. He took a little bit of a break. And so I was part of that whole like rebranding and reintroduction into the industry. And this was great because working with DJ Tennis was such a blessing. He's also someone similar to me that's done so many different jobs within the music industry, that he was really able to explain things in a way to me where I can really feel him. And I know that things are coming from experience and not just, I think this is how it should be done, and not really have the experience to back it. So I always respected how he communicated with me. Also the music, the artists that I was able to book working with him in the brand were great. We teamed up with Sonar Festival to do Life and Death and Sonar in New York and Brooklyn, where we had an AV side and of course an artist side of the lineup. So it really broadened my experience, and it really showed me I was really grateful to be able to work for this brand.
Love
then
it. Huh? I was just saying, I love it. I have so much. I've been jotting down a couple notes. Keep going, but there's just so much beauty here. Keep going.
So also, my team and I were really gearing up for 2020 to be the biggest year yet. We have a full roster of artists that we're managing. We had a bunch of events, and of course, circumstances changed quite a bit, and everything changed. And also we had to change. I had to change. And this was, for me, an opportunity to level up my management, because everybody around me was living in fear. We're living in an unexpected time. And I could also have easily gone down that road as well. But I really took this as an opportunity to see what else we could create. So one of my clients from Grounded Festival, actually, him and my team, we all brainstormed and came up with a global initiative called Masks for Music. And that is Master Music is an innovative initiative to help anyone working in the music industry generate another revenue stream. So with this, we've been able to have partners all over the world: Australia, Africa, the States, Canada, all through Europe, and also working with other, electronic music brands like Native Instruments. We had a remix competition going on with the Metapop. So that was really a way that we took a situation that could have easily broken us all, but we created something so unique, so special, and something that is helping anyone that works in the music industry during these times. And to me, that I feel so grateful to be able to do that, and also just create something positive from a otherwise scary situation.
This is incredible. I'll start at the end and then work back, because there's a few really great things that you said. But what I like is that, of course, you took time to take a quick step back, look at the situation and say, what can I do? How can we help? Especially in artistry and music, where a lot of lives were changing instantaneously. And it's like, hey, listen, there's a lot of ways actually in this beautiful new paradigm technologically that we can create. There's a lot of new ways to monetize. And I think it's exceptional that you took time to like, listen, pivot, here's what we're going to do. And I have found most entrepreneurs, that was the first thing any of us thought of, is like, oh, well, I've been pivoting my entire life. So what can I do? How can I serve? Where can I lead? And let's make a move. I feel like sometimes we were prepared well before for many, many years, especially when you talk about your past experiences. I was taking a lot of different notes, and I thought it was really interesting is that a lot of people think that they have to have all the answers before, starting. And I always say the only real way you get answers is starting. So, and it's clear, like when you were saying, I wanted to throw parties. So I created my business name, logo, brand. And I also like that we're from the same era where before social media, even though we grew up with it and used it, before social media, we also were working before social media. And the connection of really studying the audience, you're going to have to study the audience in any business. You going out personally and watching the audience and saying, they're a fit for like what I'm trying to create. Let me get their feedback. Yeah. You're always going to need that in any business. And then the personal touch of like, let me get their email and let me build a database. That's still very relevant for anybody listening today, because a true connected community database is way better than manipulated numbers. All my numbers are organic and real, but like I'm in a sea of people that are all like manipulated numbers. And it's just like, wow, okay, community, people get back to the basics. So I love that you brought that up, because I think it's still a very, very relevant point today. And then the social just allows to kind of bring what we're all doing to kind of a visual storefront, if you will, right? Or a representation. So I love that you said that. I loved actually everything that you were talking about. It was just interesting, because you were always talking about like, hey, I didn't know where it was going to lead to, but it felt right. So I took a chance, and then here's what happened. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck thinking about it too much, but if they can tap into their core and be like, it feels right, we'll see where it goes, and have that flexibility to just move. And then of course you were met with partnership and success. And I used success is different for each person, but like, just good outcomes that were teaching you and allowing you to elevate. And then I love the part where you said that you started to build your own agency on your own terms. Yeah, because at that point, right? I mean, you've got all the resources, you've been resourcing for years. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of what happens when you're not a big part of the vertical integration. I know I always did from my resources. And the integrity part, like we don't have to sacrifice our integrity. We can actually say, let me organize all of the previous year's experience, right? And put that into a packaged brand that allows me to be more efficient, have a better approach, be more vertically integrated, have systems and processes put into place, be able to kind of manage the outcomes, knowing that I know what kind of work I put in. And by the way, I can say no to whoever I want to if they're not aligned with my values. It's a very freeing place to be. Responsible, but very freeing. So I love that you brought that up.
Thanks so much. And I totally agree what you say. Sometimes people get really in their heads when they're about to make a decision or jump into something unexpected and new. But I also want to make sure that people realize that it's totally fine to fail as well. You
Yeah.
know, I've had my bumps in the road. I failed here and there as well, but I wouldn't be who I am without the failure, as part of my invisible diversity.
I like that part. And this kind of leads into one of the first things I wanted to talk about with you. But I always tell people, I'm like, failure somehow became this weird, dirty word in society. And I'm like, I don't even know where that came from. And people always ask, like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, okay, I look at it as a signal. You try something and it either is a yes or a no. It worked or it doesn't work, or it feels right or it doesn't feel right. And then it allows you to make the next decision, the next decision, the next decision. So I'm like, yeah, obviously when we really make like several in a row bad mistakes that maybe lead to a company failure or whatever it might be, or something not going through, all it really did though was bring us all of the signals in order to be like, okay, what would I do differently next time? And how can I apply that in other areas? So it's really our self-taught education. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, is that, you can go to school and get all, like, learning all the books and do all those things, but hey, the school of hard knocks and really getting out and testing the waters is, I think I went all the way with the education, and I do not, like, I don't not do anything with it, but like, in truth, a lot of what I do, especially in the tech world, was just because I just kept immersing in it. And you brought that up. You said, like, you learned video production for your stuff. You learned editing. You learned, design. You learned web. You learned all that. We had to. To. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, because I love when in the past, when I had clients or just other people I consulted with, they were like, how did you know all this stuff? I'm like, Google or YouTube. And they would laugh. They're like, I can't believe you'd actually say that. And I was like, well, I'm also about 15, 20 years deep. So like, I got that on you. I was like, but yeah, I'm like, when you come up with everything is new. In Moore's law, every 18 months, something is changing. Now it's like 6. Like, you just learn it. You have no choice. So.
Right. Yeah, because people rely on you as well. People rely on you and they say, okay, we need this done. Either you waste time in trying to find other people that do it, or you just, you use your resources, you use the internet, whatever, and you just try, or you use tutorials or whatever they are. You try to find a way to get it done, because at the end of the day, how rewarding is it to know that you just accomplished something that you never even knew that before you didn't know what you didn't know. And so I'm really a really firm believer that it takes one word that I think is really important here when we're talking about the failures as well is resilience. Mm-hmm. Resilience is key, and being able to adapt to any situation, being able to adapt to, not knowing a skill, not whatever it is, resilience is really key here to success, in my opinion.
Resilience is everything, because, that ability of adaptation requires you very quickly to look at the person in the mirror, and be like, okay, what do I need to do at this moment? And how am I interpreting what I'm feeling? What do I like? I got to make moves. I got to make something happen. And then I do things enough time with consistency and experience, and you start to make better and better and better and better choices in all things. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Resilience is that's such a very beautiful defining word. And especially when you think about, you were involved in music, which is changing very rapidly that entire time. You're involved in technology, which is changing like in nanoseconds. Mm-hmm. And at the speed of which people, consume music and art. So I probably had to learn very quickly how to move.
Yeah, on the fly. I just navigated, and in my opinion, for myself, I feel like as long as I am moving forward and I'm progressing, then I will always end up to be where I'm supposed to be. I'm a very firm believer that no matter where my life leads me, I know it's going to be in the right direction, because I'm always leading with good intentions. I'm always leading with my passion, leading with my heart, and being able to use my mind, at the right moments, and having a good balance between those two, not always going with the mind, not always going with the heart, but having a balance in between.
Right. I think I heard something was like the greatest distance is between the heart and the mind. Close the gap on that, and the more balance you can have, and clarity and direction. You got to experience also a lot of different cultures, a lot of different approaches to music and art. And I can only imagine that it probably created an even greater dynamic for, wow, like we're all really one. Like we're all kind of banded together, bonded together because, we all are love. Like we all love music and we all are love. Like we're all just really expressing ourselves, et cetera. Have you, do you feel like that's also helped a lot more in your leadership style? Because you've had to work cross culturally, you've had to be around so many different environments and probably like leadership styles. How has that led for you in your own leadership journey? And then, some of the core principles now, the book, but like what are some of like your core principles now with your leadership style?
Well, firstly, I want to touch on when you're saying, we all are one when it comes to music. And this is absolutely true. When you go to a music event, you go to create memories. You go to forget about whatever else is happening in your life, and you're there to listen to the music and you dance. And this to me is one of my biggest drives, is to help create those memories for people. And when I'm doing events, I want them to be experiential. I want them to be immersive. I want when you go, I want the journey to start even before, like when you're going through all of the marketing, when you're seeing the flyers, when you're seeing the videos, I want people to feel what they're going to experience when they get there. And when they get there, with the lights, with the attention to all the detail, all the decoration, making sure that you speak to the security guards before the event to make sure they treat everybody well when they arrive. All of these create good experience. And this for me is how I do lead. I want people to understand what this guest experience is going to be. I want people to understand that when they are a part of an event, that every single person is important. Every single element is important. And it's not just to say, hey, just do this. They need to people need to see it. You need to help them visualize it. And then at the end, they totally get it. And I really hope a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past still can remember some of the things that we've discussed, some of the things that we visualized, and how they were able to really create also themselves memorable experiences for people. So that's where I stem my leadership from, is to really come from a good place and make sure that people are experiencing something that they're going to keep in their minds for hopefully the rest of their lives. I
love that. Sometimes I wonder, did it come from the branding aspect of my background? Did it come from the spiritual and the self-awareness and getting into the heart aspect of the background? But I have found that leadership to me is like, listen, what are your needs? Whether it's the customer or your team. Like, what are your needs? Like, what do you want? Like, it's all good. Like, it's a safe space. I know that sometimes big, scary companies don't always allow that space to like talk about these things. But like, what do you need? Like, what do you want in life? Like, what do you need? What are your innate needs? So that being a part of what we're trying to do here serves that. And it's the same whether it's a customer. You're like, what are your needs? Like, you want a really great experience at this event. You want to feel the music. You want to connect with other people. You want to just for a moment create a memory. What are your needs? And I want to help serve that. Otherwise, this may not be for you, but that's also me respecting, like, you might want a different festival, or if this can't help you get to like that further place that you're trying to go, I want for you what you want for you. And right. And I feel like when we understand needs, whether as a customer or a teammate, we're able to kind of, again, all row the boat together and actually like accomplish something really of a great magnitude. And without the feeling bad for the need or the want, and of course being seen, felt, and heard, which is really what I think in the entire population in one way or another, no matter how they're acting out, it's truly wants to be seen, felt, and heard. You know what I mean?
I'm so happy that you mentioned this, about the teams and finding what they want. I also think this is extremely important. Finding out what your team's goals are in life and trying to align that, and even in the future, if a team member is not working with me because they're closer to what they want to be doing in life, I think this is part of the journey. I think this is so important. It's something that I've also learned even more. Like, I'm learning all the time. And last year, I started to realize that I needed to empower my team more, and I needed to empower them by allowing them to make more decisions on their own. So it's not that I go make decisions for people. It's that sometimes I get caught because I do have so much experience. I'm a wealth of knowledge that when someone asks me for something, that I have all the answers. I know how the answers, and I also was thinking, okay, if you know how I will do it, then you'll do it similar to me. So then to like let go of this, and also even realize this, that wow, maybe they're not. Maybe they are inspired by me, right? Maybe, but I also need them to be inspired by themselves, and so, giving them the opportunity, giving them more freedom, empowering them to make decisions. If they ask me something, I let them find the answers and then give them feedback and support based on that. This is something that I learned quite a bit last year, and seeing how my team has developed and evolved since then, like it's leaps and bounds, and I'm so proud. But this is the constant learning for ourselves as well.
I absolutely agree. I want you to be inspired, but I want you to be empowered. And I want you to feel like I'm a wealth of resource when you need it, but that you feel confident to express and hone in on the talent and really drive that lane. And then also feel trusted for you driving that lane. And I'm there to kind of almost be like part of that. You got this, like you're in that lane, like go, because, and I want you to be better at me than that. I don't want to do it. Like that's your talent. Like, and if you're that talent and you're that talent and you're that talent and I'm this talent and we all put that together, we're really creating something amazing. Again, of course, that also requires, I believe, a lot of removal of the ego in emotion in your approach to, being very self-aware and honest and open, and not saying like I must do that or I must have that. And truly, when you're a visionary, to be able to really create at an expansive place, one, it takes a village. It takes a lot of people, right? Yeah. And a trusting of the people and letting go.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then really a lot of beauty comes from that, from letting go.
So much. Yeah. I will say it's an interesting place to start learning that side of management, of like, oh wow, I'm the bottleneck. You're like, wait a minute, do I need to let go? Like, yeah, you do. I've had people in the past be like, we love you, but we're here to do it for you. You need to let go, and I'm like, you're right. Make me be proud that I can let go, and I will just be QA. I'll be quality assurance. All right, let me get out of the way. You execute it, and I'll be QA, and I'll tweak the engine at the end or something. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, thank you. I love having these kind of conversations because I want this for many organizations. I want kind of the removal of the hierarchical, and then some people might disagree with that, but just the more conscious we are within an organization and the way we lead, in an honesty, not enabling, but in an honesty, and allowing that, like, hey, again, I want people to feel inspired and empowered to like almost kind of be I guess what they call an entrepreneur, right, within an organization, and like, how would you tackle this? I want to see how far your mind can go.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the possibilities globally that would have on business as an industry, but that's another topic. I want to ask you first, actually, about your mindset. Was it natural? Was it environmental? Was it a lot of just wanting that personal self-reflection? I get asked that a lot, so I'm curious to ask others. Where did it come from? Where did it start? Was it just a part of who you were from a very young age? And how did you really kind of drive that harder in your growth?
This is a really hard question,
right?
To be honest, because I don't think so much about what I'm doing. I just do it. I just go for it, And,
yes, I do.
And I think maybe it was that my mom was a single mother. Maybe it was the fact that I grew up in a rough part of Vancouver and I wanted to get out and do something more. Maybe it was just taking every opportunity and seeing what would come with it. I'm not sure. I think that it's something that has been in me, because it just feels so natural that I don't know where it comes from, but I have like an absolute internal, like unlimited inspiration, unlimited motivation. I'm self-motivated. There's not much to see outside that's like, okay, it's like, oh, this is what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to do this now. And it all comes, I feel like a lot of it comes from within me. So that's a difficult question. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the answer, but it's all a part of me.
It very much is an answer. And I answer it usually the same way. especially since I write and express myself to hundreds of thousands of people every day online. And they're just like, where does it come from? I'm like, and yeah, if we tried to pinpoint it to things, I'm like, I grew up with a very holistic mother who was like, here, try this, like, for your health. Here, try, here, oh, you have a problem? I'll be like 10. She'll be like, here, read, Gandhi, something on Gandhi. You're like, okay, I'm 10. Later on, it served me, but I feel you. I think it comes from a very internal place, a very soulful place, and I welcome the responsibility of it, which means like it's a great place to lead from and lead by example. And I recognize that that's a responsibility. So you have a very beautiful, big responsibility that people watch your leadership style and be like, wow, there could be a better way with a little bit more ease and a little bit less stress and a lot more honesty and love. and I don't have to feel, as resistant along the way. So I can tell you, I'm sure as everybody that works with you probably is very grateful for that as well too. So there really isn't a right answer or a wrong answer, but I liked your answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. One of the things that you talked about with your other initiative of helping artists with another revenue stream. And I love that because take your pick at this point. I mean, you got everything from like, oh, you want to create like a Patreon, or you can go now into Origin, and do like a decentralized shop. Sorry, I'm also like an NFT, like a blockchainer. I've been blockchain for like 5-6 years anyways, in crypto. But like, there's so many avenues for artists taking back their ownership and creativity. Hallelujah.
Right.
I've only been preaching that for 20 years, but I guess now I'm finally living in an era that I'm accepted for that. So I'm glad you're doing it, because I think sometimes it can be a little scary, especially for artists, especially because artists want to be about their creativity. And one of the best things I ever heard Dr. Dre say, to paraphrase, he was saying like, he's like, I love creativity. I love my creativity. He's like, I hate business. But he was saying it more so from like a standpoint of, because of like the politics that come in with it. But then he corrected himself and he said, but I had to learn the business to better manage my creativity and expand it way further than I ever could imagine it. So I had to be responsible and accountable for what I'm creating and building. And I love that, because we can make the business aspect, we can take the same creative energy and be like, how would I manage me and, have more ownership and responsibility about the world that I'm creating. So I would love to, you can go on as much of a tear as you want, but I'd love to get your, thoughts on this time that we're living and all the possibilities, and then what you're seeing even as you're continuing to help artists with your newest initiative.
Yeah. So when we started Masks for Music, there really wasn't any other initiative like it during that time. We were really one of the first. We launched on May 28th, started, and it was one of the first initiatives to help our industry. And it's not just for artists, it's for anyone working in the music industry, because booking agents, managers, people that work in press, it's across the board where the income has been kind of disappeared. So it was really a way for anyone that works in the music industry to benefit. Yeah, this was something that we're very proud to be able to create. But what's really come from this is something I want to mention, where my life is headed right now. While we're doing the PR campaigns for Masks for Music, I started to see a lot of interest in the press wanting to interview me about myself and my career. And it was the first time that I had to take a chance to be like, okay, put my face in front of something, because of course I've been doing this in the music business for such a long time, but I'm behind the scenes. Like, everyone knows me, it's like word of mouth. Oh, get Lindi to do this or that. I don't even think I had even a website for my business until maybe a year and a half ago or something, because it was just kind of known. But when I had the opportunity to put myself in front of the project, I really started again to see the world open up again. And while these articles were being released, I started to also get a lot of feedback from young women of color, just saying how impressed they were by my career and they're so inspired, etc. And then I started to think, wow, you know what? I really am one of the very few Black female entrepreneurs in the electronic techno industry. And I think it's actually really important for me to be out there and as an example, because I think it will encourage more women of color and even maybe more women to start trying new things and creating their companies within this space. And this kind of went a little bit further. It's like, okay, so I am a woman of color. I am someone that has quite a few connections. I have a lot of, a big network. I actually would love to not only inspire women of color to be in the music industry, but I also want to help facilitate that. So this has led me to where I am at the moment. So I started going to school the end of last year to become an intercultural and diversity trainer. And so now this is what I am doing. I'm going to corporate companies within the music industry to train them on all of the important topics about diversity, inclusion, of course, like microaggressions or unconscious bias, all of this, and also a way to really help them see their organizations in a different light and to start finding ways to integrate more people of color into the music industry. So this is where I'm at now. And this is where I also see myself more of service. And I know you mentioned before, letting go of ego. I really feel like over the past year, my ego is diminishing more and more. I'm not looking for the next big event to produce and I'm trying to top everything that I've done over and over again. Now I'm kind of taking a step to say, all right, now it's time for me to take my knowledge, my experience, and my desire and my passion for the music industry and really show young women of color that there is room for them here and to let them know that there is someone that looks like them doing it,
Yeah. So much good in what you were talking about where, I was very fortunate to be raised in a lot of diversity and from parents who lived all over the world and who really immersed me right from the very get-go. And so I naturally thought that the way we are inclusive of just like all culture, because that's all I was ever around, especially my parents were from Bronx, New York. So like everybody just like loves on everybody and helps each other out. And I grown up for so long thinking that was just a natural thing. And then you start to realize that it's actually yet another really great responsibility of like, oh, wow. There's so much that more powerful when we're all like doing so much together. I found it very interesting that coupled with emotional intelligence, my parents raised a very critical thinker. Mm-hmm. And I give a lot of that to them. And so what you're doing with organizations, I like that when we start instilling critical thinking and better emotional intelligence, we start to actually see a whole other like, what am I missing both in myself and in general and like how I'm serving the world at large? When you can get people to start like, just again, looking at themselves as like, hey, do you know what your needs are? Do you know what your values are? Like, no, but like really know, not like what you put on paper and it sounds good on the company and all that other stuff, because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, do you know what they actually really are? And do you know how you really feel? And do you really have an understanding of your emotions in a way that's like just very self-aware? And the more self-aware you are, I feel like the more you realize how like all interconnected we all really are. And it creates a whole other different dynamic of expansion for the possibilities of things versus people who maybe just didn't necessarily, their emotional intelligence wasn't really as worked on as like, nope, you go get the job, you go like fight for like hell to get to like the top, and this is how you do it. And it's like, well, there's a few things in there. Again, because you're entrepreneurial, because you're creative, because you always stepped out on your own and tried things. I feel like that probably also really helped in the expansion of you and the emotional intelligence. And it's like, oh, okay, like it seems natural to us, but it's not always so natural for other people. So again, like what a beautiful responsibility to just help people like, hey, look, let's start at the core. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's something I'm really excited about. I'm really passionate about. So, and that's the thing, if I hadn't started this Master Music Initiative and started to put myself out there and be the face of this, then it wouldn't have led me where I am right now. And this is why, again, I reiterate that when you're taking steps forward in the direction that you feel you should be going, then the world opens up. The world conspires to do it for you,
Yes.
and you can only do that if you take those chances.
Yeah. And, I love the fact, you were saying as leading from your heart, because specifically when you said, well, I wasn't chasing the next big project, the next, each time I did a new one, I was going to, chase another one. That resonated with me very much so, because that happens, especially when especially the drive to create and the drive to make things happen. And I realized the importance of, it's like slow when you slow down and drop into your heart, you can actually do even more than you did, and sometimes with less work, just ish. Not like you don't have to do the work, but I'm saying like, because it's very clear and directional. Yeah, you could do even so much more than like, no, I'm just going to do this event, like, or we're going to do this massive initiative, and let's see where that goes, because it's coming from here. So that's incredible. What do you have coming up right now?
Well, right now it's still our strange time in the world. So I'm studying a lot. I'm training. I'm working on a lot of different projects with my artists. My artist Untitled, she comes out with her album at the beginning of May. Another artist, Raven, she's working on her next EP. She's had a nice podcast that just came out. Another artist, Hi Brazil, he just came out with an amazing EP called Desic on Awesome Soundwave. So there's lots of really fun stuff that we're doing with the artists. So yeah, and then also we're still working on myself, taking a mentorship program, learning how to increase my level of consciousness, becoming more of a conscious leader, and just finding ways to, develop myself and move forward in a really strong and healthy way as much as I can.
I love that. And if you ask most conscious people, that's always part of their maintenance routine. People ask, they're like, wow, you do like a lot of these workshops. And I'm like, I usually do about 4 a year. Or like, I'll go on like retreats like for a week. And they're like, you still do? I'm like, it's maintenance, like an elevation. And we're forever students until like, for as long as I'm here. If I'm waking up in the morning, I'm like, a lesson to be learned somewhere. And I think the more demands of the world on us, the more grounding and, intention we have to like really, constantly fill our cups, So I love that you say that. Where can everybody like find you online? They can connect with you. They can connect with Delight Management, or they can connect with you personally. Give all the goods.
Yeah. So anywhere online, I'm at Lindi Delight. That's LindiDelight. In case you're wondering, Delight really is my middle name. So it's not something that I made up. But yeah, so anywhere online, you find me as Lindi Delight. Super easy. I
love it. I feel like you're one of those people where the name, like, yeah, when you're born with the name, that's like, it was destined for, not just greatness, but like, it's like very specific. It's like, no, these are the industries that this name goes with, It's incredible. I love it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time and for being on the show, and all the amazing things that you're doing. And thank you for sharing your background. I love the journey, and I love the constant like, hey, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. And it's been, incredible. I'm sure we all know there's like bumps along the way, but like, it's cool to see like, what opportunities are created when we kind of get out of our way a little bit and just kind of jump into the action of like, this might work. So I really, really appreciate you being on the show and sharing all of that with us.
Thanks. And I truly feel still like anytime I'm trying something new, I feel like it's just the beginning. So even though I have so much experience, I've done so many things in my past, I feel like I'm maybe halfway there. There's still so much more that's going to come. And it's really exciting.
Yeah. And what's that? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and I'm really happy I had a chance to come and speak to you today. It's a really great conversation. And I think, a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll have a ton of more too, especially on the conscious stuff. And something also real quick that you just said, I love that kind of that forever student model. I remember I once interviewed Mr. Cartoon in his home. We were talking about, he's like world famous tattoo artist and does like all the stuff with like every musician around the world. And I remember him saying like every time he does a new project, he's like, I'm always an infant again. I'm always a student, always constantly. He's like, there'll always be a new project that I don't know how to do things on. And I love it because then I get to learn. I get to feel like I'm learning a new craft, or I'm learning something new that I get to expand on. I'm like, when somebody starts saying that in their 40s and 50s and 60s, you're like, cool, forever a student. And so I really appreciate that in you as well too. And, for everybody listening, Lindi Delight, on all platforms. You can reach out to her. I'm sure she's very busy, so be gentle with how fast she gets back to you. But please be sure to go ahead and support her. And we'll also have some show notes here. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to On Top of the Cover. It's quickly rising, and we're very, very grateful. And it means a lot to us, to the movement, to the contribution of music culture, and really, the world at large. Thank you guys for also giving a lot of the feedback. We've been getting a lot of feedback. The 5-star reviews are amazing on Apple. Please keep them coming in. Apple, obviously, in a technologically driven world, expands the, the ability to be found from those. So it really means a lot to us. And of course, you can follow us on all major platforms at We Are Orlove, and myself at Matt Gottesman on Insta. And also be sure to subscribe to the Orlove YouTube channel. We do weekly launches of our web series Under the Covers. We feature artists from all over the world that are doing cover songs that really, truly, they embody their vibe. And it's actually taken off tremendously over the last 10 months. And of course, there'll be exclusive footage from today's show out as well too. So if you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, or anywhere else, you can also watch this episode right on our Orlove YouTube channel. We absolutely love you guys, and we're out.